Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us for the journey home of three space travelers aboard the Soyuz MS-15 spacecraft. Momentarily, we'll see NASA astronauts Andrew Morgan, Jessica Meir, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Skripochka wave a final farewell to their time aboard the International Space Station before boarding the vehicle that will take them home. I'm NASA's Leah Cheshire, live in the International Space Station Flight Control Room here at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. The Orbit 3 team is currently on console, led by Flight Director Marcos Flores. Capcom today, Andreas Mogensen is communicating with the astronauts aboard the station, and you can see them there on your screen, Marcos on your left, and Andreas on your right.
That looks good, thank you.
And visiting vehicle officer today, who is keeping track of what's happening with the Soyuz vehicle, is Mike Campion.
Can I turn off the camera for now? Yes, you can turn off the camera. Thank you. Station Moscow on Space to Ground 1 for Anatoly.
These are our three crew members coming home. You can see NASA astronaut Jessica Meir and Oleg Skripochka. They both have 205 days on station after this most recent visit. And Andrew Morgan, who spent a little bit longer of a time there aboard the International Space Station. Morgan's 272-day mission began on July 20th, 2019, the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing, with his launch aboard the Soyuz MS-13 spacecraft, along with Luca Parmitano of the European Space Agency and Alexander Skvortsov of Roscosmos. He has a total of 115.3 million miles under his belt, thanks to this spaceflight, his first, and contributed to hundreds of experiments in biology, earth science, human research, and more. He also conducted 7 spacewalks over 45 hours and 48 minutes, 4 of which were to improve and extend the life of the station's alpha magnetic spectrometer as it looks for evidence of dark matter in the universe. He now has the fourth longest spaceflight for an American, with those 272 days on just his first mission, following Scott Kelly, Christina Cook, and Peggy Whitson. Meir and Skripochka, who launched on the Soyuz MS-15 spacecraft that we'll see today, on September 25, 2019, will land with Morgan. They both have 205 days in space from this mission and over 86.9 million miles. It's the first spaceflight for Jessica Meir, who conducted the first 3 all-women spacewalks with crewmate Christina Cook of NASA, totaling 21 hours and 44 minutes outside the hatch. Skripochka is completing his 3rd spaceflight for a cumulative 536 days in orbit. Just to look at some of the vehicles that have arrived during the expedition's 61 through 62 missions. There were 3 SpaceX arrivals, 2 from the Russian Progress resupply ship, another 2 from the Northrop Grumman Cygnus,
Right now you do not need to do anything.
an uncrewed Russian Soyuz, as well as 2 other crews joining via Soyuz vehicles, one just being last week. There was also the launch of the Japanese HTV-8 cargo ship.
Yes. Let's leave Space to Ground 1. As of right now, as our primary communication from MCC Moscow and from the ISS. And
this is a balcony view of the Russian Mission Control Center in Koryov, a town outside of Moscow. That is the team that will be controlling all of tonight's landing operations.
That is right.
Our coverage starts tonight with the crew saying goodbye to their crewmates on station and boarding the Soyuz MS-15 attached to the station's Zvezda Russian service module. Returning to Earth will be Andrew Morgan, Jessica Meir, and Oleg Skripochka. And though these 3 spacefarers are coming home, 3 more will remain behind to live and work on the space station for about 6 months. That includes NASA's Chris Cassidy and Ivan Wagner and Anatoly Ivanishin of Roscosmos. Cassidy will stay on board the station until October with these cosmonauts, and this is the 3rd station mission for Cassidy and Ivanishin, while Wagner is beginning his first.
Thank you.
Yesterday, handover occurred in a traditional change of command ceremony from Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Skropochka to NASA's Chris Cassidy. Let's take a look at that moment and some of their remarks.
So our expedition time passed very quickly, and but anyway, I am really grateful to our crew for this great time we had on board the space station. It was great time to work, great time to have pastime as a one team. But now it's time for us to hand over the space station control to the following crew. We sincerely wish them great work, enjoy Earth's views from space vehicle, to complete all tasks you have to complete. I know, real professionals, and to return to Earth exactly in time. Я хочу сказать, что время нашей экспедиции пролетело очень быстро, но я искренне благодарен нашему экипажу за то прекрасное время, которое мы провели здесь вместе. Это было время для интересной работы, и было время и для отдыха, когда могли собраться все вместе. И все пролетело быстро, и все было очень здорово. Но сейчас для нас настало время передать управление станцией следующему экипажу. Мы знаем, что это настоящие профессионалы, и мы оставляем станцию в хороших руках. Мы искренне желаем следующему экипажу выполнить все задачи, которые перед ними стоят, и благополучно вернуться на Землю как раз вовремя.
Thank you, Oleg. It's with great honor and pride that I take command of the International Space Station. We're receiving the space station in great order. Much thanks to you and the excellent work of the Expedition 62 crew. So on behalf of Expedition 63, thank you very much, and we have the con.
And station use and the change of command is an event that is rich with tradition, symbolism, and heritage. Expedition 62 has been full of remarkable historical records. Your dedication to the mission, tireless efforts day in and day out, and outstanding performance in everything you did is much appreciated by the ISS program and NASA. Thank you, Jessica, Drew, and Oleg. And I'll hand it over to Moscow for additional words.
Да, принимаем эстафету от наших американских.
We are taking the baton from Houston. Good night, the whole crew. The operative team from Moscow is happy to greet you. Yuri Krasnych, I'm the SRT today. So the Expedition 62 is coming to an end. During the time of this expedition, wonderful work has been performed very successfully, and we hope that the final stretch of this way also will be performed beautifully, and we wish a soft landing to the crew of 61S and the crew that remains on board the station. I hope will perform everything beautifully as well, and now I'm giving the baton and the floor to the crew that is staying on the station. I know they have something to say, as well as the crew that is leaving the station.
Expedition 62 departing.
Expedition 63 will officially begin tonight at 8:53 p.m. Central Time when the hooks securing it to the Zvezda module are opened and the crew begins their journey home. The vehicle that will be bringing the crew is the Soyuz MS-15, a Russian spacecraft composed of 3 segments, which you can see right here. The upper bulbous portion is the orbital module. This includes the rendezvous antennas and the docking probe that will be activated upon the undocking command being sent to the vehicle. After that undocking command is sent, it takes about 90 seconds for us to see any physical movement from the Soyuz. The center section is the descent module, and this is where the crew will be seated. It's where we'll see them enter very shortly. After they have closed the hatches, they'll don their Sokol suits and strap into their designated seats for the ride home. This segment holds the life support and the guidance, navigation, and control systems. This is the only portion of the spacecraft that survives the heat of re-entry, and with a parachute-assisted landing, it will land on the steppes of Kazakhstan, scheduled for 12:16 a.m. Central Time tomorrow, April 17th. The lower portion of the vehicle is the propulsion module. This houses the engines and other instruments necessary to maneuver the Soyuz during activities like the deorbit burn, which is scheduled to bring the crew down out of Earth's orbit tonight at 11:22 p.m. Central Time. This evening's return to Earth for the Expedition 63 crew will begin with the undocking of the Soyuz MS-15 from the aft port of the Zvezda module on the space station at 8:52 p.m. Central Time, as seen in this animation. Springs on both sides of the docking interface will push off against each other to allow that physical separation of Soyuz from the station. Next up for the Soyuz will be the deorbit burn, scheduled for 11:22 p.m. Central Time this evening. It's a retrograde burn and will last 4 minutes, 41 seconds, slowing the Soyuz spacecraft down by 128 meters per second, enough to drop it out of Earth's orbit for re-entry. At 11:50 p.m., the three portions of the Soyuz module will pyrotechnically separate, leaving the orbital module and propulsion module to burn up in the atmosphere, while the descent module you see here, with its 3 crew members on board, will have its heat shield forward to the direction of travel. Once the crew is out of the plasma regime, a series of parachutes will open. First, 2 pilot parachutes, and then a drogue chute, and lastly, the main chute that will guide the spacecraft down in a 15-minute descent. From the time the parachutes deploy to the soft landing engines fire, just about 2 seconds before the crew touches down on the steppe of Kazakhstan, it takes about 15 minutes altogether. And as the space station is about 2 meters from the ground, those landing engines will fire, bringing them home about 92 miles southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan in Kazakhstan. A reduced number of NASA personnel will be supporting landing tonight, some who were in Kazakhstan last week to support the Soyuz launch and were joined by a small NASA team that flew in on a NASA plane to the city of Kizlorda in central Kazakhstan. Because the airport in Karaganda, which is the normal staging location, was closed by Kazakhstan authorities, the Russian search and recovery forces reworked landing logistics and decided to stage landing operations with helicopters at the airport in Baikonur, since they were already there to support launch last week in event of contingency. The NASA team is currently working in Baikonur with the Russian search and recovery forces. After landing, the crew will return by Russian helicopters to the recovery staging city in Baikonur, Kazakhstan. It's about a 2.5-hour ride where they will split up. The NASA crew will then move to ground transportation for about a 3-hour ride to the airport in Kizlorda. The crew would typically depart from Karaganda. However, due to coronavirus restrictions, those airports are closed. Morgan and Mir will board a NASA plane located in the adjacent city of Kizlorda for a flight back to Ellington Field in Houston. Skripochka will board a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center, or GCTC, aircraft in Baikonur to return to his home in Star City, Russia. Weather at the landing site is currently looking very favorable, with clear skies and light winds and temperatures at about 61 degrees Fahrenheit. And the Soyuz is now on internal autonomous power, preparing it to receive its 3 crew members, which it will bring home this evening. Once the crew climb into their Soyuz tonight and close the hatch behind them, the station crew will close their side of the hatch, and then the crew will be in the Soyuz for a few hours, which will be spent equalizing the pressurization across the vestibule between Soyuz and the service module, depressurizing it to a vacuum in preparation for undocking. The crew on the Soyuz will conduct a leak check on their side of the docking interface to ensure a tight seal before the passageway is pressurized down to a vacuum. The 3 crew members will then suit up in their Sokol launch and entry suits. They'll conduct leak checks on their suits, other systems checks, and strap in. Throughout tonight, you'll hear the team here in the Russian Mission Control Center in Koryov addressing the Russian crew aboard the Soyuz and its commander, Oleg Skripochka, in the center seat as Sarmat. That is the call sign he has chosen for this vehicle. We mentioned that NASA astronaut Andrew Morgan, who has just spent about 9 months aboard the International Space Station, launched on the anniversary of the Apollo 11 landing on the moon. You can see Andrew Morgan over to your left. Also important to note is tomorrow will actually be the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 13 crew making a safe landing after quite a what is being called a successful failure. And Morgan will also land on this day, encapsulating his mission on 2 very important days for NASA. We're standing by awaiting for the crew aboard the International Space Station, 3 of them that is, to float into view and make their way into the Soyuz MS-15, waiting for them at the aft port of the Zvezda service module. That hatch closure is scheduled for about 5:30 p.m. Central Time. Hatch closure of the Soyuz, which we expect to see momentarily, is just the first of major milestones tonight for the Soyuz spacecraft and its crew on board. After a few hours of suit checks and leak checks aboard the Soyuz, the spacecraft itself will then begin preparation for undocking. The undocking command will be sent at 8:52 p.m. Central Time to the Soyuz, and it will open the hooks that have been attaching it to the Zvezda module. It'll take about 90 seconds until we see any actual movement from that command being sent to the spacecraft. Undocking itself scheduled for 8:53 and 30 seconds p.m. Central Time. The Soyuz will perform one separation burn, carrying it far away enough from the station, about 19 miles or 32 kilometers, for it to later execute its deorbit burn, scheduled for 11:22 p.m. and lasting 4 minutes 41 seconds.
Station Moscow on Space to Ground 1 for Anatoly.
We mentioned that there were some differences in landing tonight and the crews that will be tending to the astronauts. And to talk a little bit more about that, NASA astronaut Jessica Meir spoke yesterday on how everything has come together for their return to Earth.
Yeah, this situation has dramatically affected our plans. NASA has done an incredible job. Our support people on the ground have been working very hard to figure out even how to come pick us up. So, as you know, we launch in the Soyuz spacecraft from Baikonur in Kazakhstan, and we land in Kazakhstan as well. So normally what happens is a NASA aircraft comes over to pick us up and gets us back to Houston within 24 hours. But of course, even getting that NASA aircraft over there with all the international stops involved has been quite an effort. And we're taking a different path. It's going to be kind of like a planes, trains, and automobiles scenario where I think we're going to even end up riding in an ambulance for several hours across the Kazakh steppe in order to get to our airplane. So it'll be a little bit different than normal, but this is the first time landing for both me and my crewmate Drew Morgan, so we don't really have anything to compare it to. It'll just be the way that it is for us. Once we get home, normally we have, a little bit of a quarantine period, which has been a little bit soft in the past in terms of we can still kind of go about our daily routine. But because one of the hallmarks of spaceflight physiologically is actually a dysregulation of our immune system, we actually can come back potentially a bit immunocompromised. So of course that makes everybody at NASA concerned, and they want to make sure that they keep us safe and healthy. So we'll have a more strict quarantine this time, where we'll be actually staying and living at NASA for at least a week after we land, with very limited access to make sure that that we remain healthy as well.
And as you heard NASA astronaut Jessica Meir discussing, there have been extensive measures to taken to protect the crew, as well as the landing team going to retrieve them.
So could you please take pictures with the full diameter of the hatch so that you capture the antenna as well? I will. Station Moscow on Space to Ground 1 for Ivan regarding the TV and video reporting. Station Moscow on Space to Ground 1 for Ivan regarding the TV and video.
And you can hear bits of audio as the ground teams prepare the cosmonauts aboard the International Space Station to set up that audio and video we expect to see shortly of the astronauts waving farewell before they board the Soyuz MS-15 spacecraft in the Zvezda service module.
Station Moscow, Space to Ground 1 for Ivan regarding the video reporting.
Sarmate, Moscow, please go to page 25, step 3.2, the preparation for the hatch closure. Pasha, this is Jessica.
Station Moscow, Space to Ground 1. Go ahead. We have a request to turn on the video camera for the TV video reporting. Turning it on, and I'm done taking pictures of the hatch. Copy. Thank you.
Moscow, Sarmate. Pavel, go ahead, Oleg. So I have started preparation for the hatch closure. Copy. And another reminder for you: the time of the hatch closure is 1:40:00. Copy.
Moscow Station on Space to Ground 1. I'm done taking pictures of the hatch. Are you receiving the video? Let me switch the channels. Stand by. For now, no video. We don't have KU band as of right now, so we're going to get it in 2 minutes, and we're going to call you one more time.
Astronauts and cosmonauts aboard the International Space Station preparing for the departure of NASA's Andrew Morgan, Jessica Meir, and Oleg Skripochka. Very shortly, we'll see video of that service module, and at the end of it, the Soyuz MS-15 spacecraft. That spacecraft will bring these three spacefarers home tonight, scheduled for a landing at 12:16 a.m. Central Time, April 17th. 1:16 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow.
Go ahead. Do we need to turn on the PRK fan? Stand by 1.
It is not illuminated now. This is Jessica.
Anatoly, please keep the fan on, but you can move it to the side. Just turn it away.
And there you have video inside the Russian segment of the International Space Station.
We can see you well.
NASA astronauts Andrew Morgan and Jessica Meir on the left, preparing for their journey home, and to the right, Roscosmos cosmonaut Anatoly Ivanishin, who just arrived 8 days ago. And floating into view, Oleg Skripochka, the commander of the Soyuz MS-15 spacecraft that will bring these 3 space travelers home today. Their departure will bring the space station crew back down to just 3. NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, Roscosmos cosmonaut Anatoly Ivanishin, there on the right side of your screen, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Ivan Wagner. You just got a glimpse on the left side of your screen of NASA's Chris Cassidy behind the camera, capturing a last few moments as the crew says farewell before departing the International Space Station. That undocking time tonight scheduled for 8:52 p.m. Central Time, and the actual movement of the space vehicle from the station coming at about 8:53 p.m. and 30 seconds. All 3 of tonight's departing crew members here in the frame. Once they get into their Soyuz spacecraft, Jessica Meir, there on your right, will actually be in the left seat as board engineer 1, sort of like the backup to the Soyuz commander, who will be Oleg Skripochka, in the middle seat and currently on the left side of your screen. Andrew Morgan will be in the right seat as board engineer 2.
Moscow station on Space to Ground 1. Go ahead. Are you receiving the image? We are. We can see all of you really well. As far as the fan, you can keep it on, but turn it away so that it's not in the way of closing and opening the hatch. Copy. So this is Utyos 1. How do you copy? We see that you're taking pictures now. All the best, guys. Thank you.
Morgan, Skripochka, and Meir getting in a few last photos of their time on the International Space Station.
On Space to Ground 1. Stand by 1.
An Expedition 62 crew, the three that we will see departing tonight in those blue tops, not in their Sokol suits just yet. That won't happen until they are in the Soyuz MS-15 spacecraft and the hatches are closed. Meanwhile, the search and recovery forces and the NASA teams on the ground are leaving their hotels in Baikonur and on their way to the Kryani airfield, which they will depart soon for the landing stage or the landing site in Zhezkazgan. Once they arrive at the airfield in Zhezkazgan, they will remain there until about the time of the deorbit burn tonight. They'll then board their helicopters and depart for the landing site. The astronauts and cosmonauts right now are in the Zvezda service module, which you can see Olga Skropochka is now in the Soyuz MS-15. And above that hatch, you can see some photos of Russian spaceflight legends, one of them being Yuri Gagarin, who made the first flight into space on April 12, 1961, which was just 59 years ago last week. And the Soyuz is now on autonomous power as the crew continued to say farewell and chat with their crewmates, everything looking smooth for their departure tonight.
Moscow, station on Space to Ground 1. We confirm, Anatoly. You can say your goodbyes, and the guys can move into their vehicle. All right, copy. We are saying goodbyes. Moscow, do we need to perform? No, we do not need to perform. Inaudible. So those steps do not need to be put in work.
The crew of 6 hugging their goodbyes. They'll all see each other next on the other side of Earth's atmosphere. And Jessica Meir, board engineer 1 and on the left seat of the vehicle, makes her way into the Soyuz MS-15 spacecraft. She's followed by Andrew Morgan with 9 months aboard the International Space Station and 272 days on this, his first mission. Floating in, he's board engineer 2 in that right seat, followed by Olga Skropochka, Roscosmos cosmonaut, the Soyuz commander. And you can see the crew is making sure their hatches are clean. And the hatch on the Soyuz side now closing. And Anatoly Ivanishin working to close the hatch on the station side. Anatoly Ivanishin continuing to work to close the station side of that Soyuz hatch. The 3 crew members now inside. And the hatch is now closed on the Soyuz. That space Ivanishin is floating out of is called the vestibule. That's the portion that will be depressurized to the vacuum level in preparation for undocking later tonight, once the space station hatch is closed as well.
Go ahead. Transfer hatch has been closed. Copy. Transfer hatch has been closed.
Sarmat, Moscow. Go ahead. This is Sarmat. Okay, so you have performed the hatch closure as per page 27.
When do you
Correct?
want us to terminate
yes,
the
so
video recording?
So hatch is closed. Copy that. Go to page 28. And could you please provide a detailed report on all the commands that will be issued? Copy. We are starting procedure at page 28. Copy.
And that Soyuz hatch closure coming at 5:44 p.m. Central Time, 6:44 p.m. Eastern Time, as the space station was flying 262 statute miles northeast off the coast of Japan.
So, D7 SSVP docking and transfer system power indicator is on. Also, we have S15 indicator, Sierra 15 indicator.
Moscow station on space ground 1. Go ahead.
Also, S15 or Sierra 15 is backup SSVP system.
Put step 10 in work and disassemble the setup. Yes. You are a go to put step 10 in work.
And with the closure of the Soyuz hatch, things are continuing to progress for the retrieval of the crew later tonight. The teams preparing for landing are now boarding their helicopters in Baikonur and preparing for a 2.5-hour flight to Zhezkazgan. Once they arrive in Zhezkazgan, they will refuel those helicopters and then make their way to the landing site, about the same time that the crew executes the deorbit burn aboard the Soyuz spacecraft. That'll be 11:22 p.m. Central Time tonight.
Step page 28, so we are sending the 8 command, the activating power of the transfer system SSVP. So transfer hatch close is not illuminated anymore. We are sending S16. You should send S16. Yes, I confirm we're sending S Sierra 16 command. It is being sent. The backup SSVP is not illuminated. The 7, the 11, and the 15, and the 17 as well. And we are sending the 8 command, the activating SSVP power, so it is not illuminated anymore. So RPV1 open is not illuminated. You can activate power of EPK-RD02 valve, and after that, open EPK-RD valve manually. Okay, so we have the power of EPK-RD main and backup are confirmed. Copy. The valve is open and supply of O2 oxygen is confirmed. Copy.
Now inside the Soyuz and with the hatch closed, the crew aboard, Mir, Morgan, and Skripochka, will check the Soyuz systems, which were activated a little while ago, so the Soyuz is running on autonomous power. They're making their final preparations for undocking, coming up in a little over 3 hours.
Copy. Yes. It's confirmed. Step 4, leak check of transfer hatches. Copy.
As you can tell, the Soyuz crew still has communication with the station, and they'll keep that line of communication open even after departure. The ability will be lost to communicate with the space station once the crew enters that plasma regime upon re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. Upon their departure tonight, the Soyuz MS-15 crew will be leaving behind just one other Soyuz spacecraft, the MS-16, which arrived just 8 days ago. That spacecraft bringing Ivan Wagner, Anatoly Ivanishin, and current commander Chris Cassidy.
Station on 2.
Go ahead on 2, Chris.
Houston станция.
Yeah, video from the hatch closing ceremony is on SSC 8 if you'd like to get that.
Thank you.
This view from the balcony of the Russian Mission Control Center in Koryov, a town just outside of Moscow where all the landing operations are being controlled for tonight. And from now forward, you'll hear the teams in this room addressing the crew aboard the Soyuz MS-15 as Sarmat. That's the call sign chosen by Oleg Skripochka, the Soyuz commander. On this mission, Oleg Skripochka and Jessim Kamir both accumulated 205 days in space, and Andrew Morgan gained 272 on his first mission.
Sarmaty Moscow. Sarmaty Moscow. So page 29, this is Jessica. Could you please repeat your last, Sarmaty?
And you can hear teams on the ground here in that Russian Mission Control Center in Koryov communicating with the crew aboard the Soyuz MS-15 spacecraft. Oleg Skripochka, Jessica Mir, and Andrew Morgan now preparing for their journey home. The hatch of the Soyuz was closed at 5:44 p.m. Central Time, 6:44 p.m. Eastern Time, as the space station was flying 262 statute miles northeast of Japan.
So this valve is...
Now that the crew is inside the space station, they will conduct leak checks and then don their Sokol suits, those white launch and entry suits, prior to depressurization in the vestibule between the Soyuz and the station, bringing that down to a vacuum level and preparing the crew for their departure.
Hatch is closed. Now,
Departure of the crew tonight, that undocking is scheduled for 8:30 p.m. Central Time. Or our coverage will begin at 8:30 p.m. Central Time, and undocking comes at 8:53 p.m. We'll be back on the air after that at 11 p.m. all Central Time for the deorbit burn and landing coverage. That deorbit burn scheduled for 11:22, bringing the Soyuz, slowing it down enough to drop it out of Earth's orbit and bring it home for a landing at 12:16 a.m. Central Time on April 17th in Kazakhstan.
We will have to wait until...
With that recap and our look at what's coming up next, we'll hope you will join us for the undocking coverage coming up at 8:30. Signing off for now, this is Mission Control Houston.